Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, so get ready to get triggered. Good morning and welcome to the Raben Report. I'm your host, Elliot Raben, and with me is my expert panel, as usual, Amara, Samuel, and Jessica. How are you guys?
Great.
Really good.
Really
Decent.
good? You don't sound very enthused. What's happening? It's reading week. We have a little break from school, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like it doesn't count with like all the assignments you have due after reading week and stuff.
Yeah.
I had midterms before. I have 2 before, 2 after.
I had
what's
2
the deal
before,
with
1
that?
after, yeah.
Yeah, mine are all the week after reading week, so
That's
reading
nice.
week doesn't really help me.
I
But
have like 5 essays due next week.
yikes.
Yeah.
Politics, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we're in for a good show today because we're all here. So, to begin, all opinions expressed are not those of Ryerson or Ryerson faculty and are only those of the individual commentators. Viewer discretion is advised. Let's start with our weekly update. Now, the first item on our list is quite devastating and upsetting. On Yom Kippur, which is the holiest day in Judaism, there was another anti-Semitic attack. So a gunman in Germany, anti-Semitic gunman in Germany, opened fire near a synagogue. He tried to get in but couldn't, and he just started shooting from the street, killing 2 people. Now, a lot of people haven't heard about this because it's just not really reported on in mainstream news, but you know, what are your thoughts? I mean, anti-Semitism is on the rise, you know?
I think it's awful, you know? It's just, I think any like senseless murder for any sort of like racist, discriminatory reason it's just awful. And I think we probably, it's weird that we haven't heard about it as much in North America, but I also feel like compared to the American mass shootings that happen way more often with way more victims, that might be why. Like it has to compete with those sorts of things, which is really sad to think that like tragedies have to compete with each other for attention. But I feel like that's probably why.
Mm-hmm. I was reading a New York Times article after we were discussing this earlier in the day, and it was discussing how, like, you know, the rise of anti-Semitism and neo-Nazis, it isn't just centered in especially it's really prominent in the U.S., but it's not just the U.S. I mean, it's places still like Germany where it's still incredibly relevant. And then I was reading further about how they the synagogue, this one in particular, they asked to have security put in place and police watch put in place just for preventative measures, and they denied that. And so that shows it in itself, I think. And I think it's just absolutely disgusting.
I think Germany's really like you can't like really be a neo-Nazi in Germany, like
It's
legally.
illegal.
Like it's illegal to do the Hitler salute or draw swastikas anywhere. Like
But it still happens.
It happens, but a lot less than here. Like it's not the same at all. So I think, I don't know if they were necessarily anti-Semitic in saying no. They might have just not thought it was necessary, which obviously it turned out to be. But I feel like anti-Semitism is a lot
He made his own guns or something along those lines.
Did he 3D print them? Is that what it was?
No, I think he just made them.
He made them like themselves, and that's like, that was another point as well. Like, I mean, as horrible as it was, if this was the States, it would have been a lot worse. Just because they would have had, it'd be it's a lot easier to make your own gun compared to like getting access to.
I mean, I don't know about that because in the States there's still anti-Semitic incidents. There's still, the Tree of Life synagogue, right? Mm-hmm. But the problem is it's in the States, so it's reported on. But anything outside of that is not.
We're very North American centered here. Like it takes a lot, I think, for news overseas to make it big here.
Which is part of the problem, I'd say. But yeah, in other news. In international affairs, Sam, you brought up the issue of Trump clearing the troops from Syria. Mm-hmm. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what's going on in that region?
Sure. So in northeastern Syria right now, there's an area that was formerly held partially by ISIS and then partially by Kurdish forces. And based on some promises that Trump made during his election campaign in 2016, he said he would aim to withdraw as many troops as possible from the Middle East. And also defeat ISIS. And now that, in his view, that ISIS is defeated, there's no further purpose for U.S. troops to be in that area. So he withdrew them with, I guess, a mutual understanding with Turkey that they wouldn't invade further than wasn't really explained well, but further than necessary to secure their own borders and their own regional interests. But it seems like now the SAA, I have to get all these abbreviations right because there's a bunch of different militia groups in there and rebel groups. The SAA, which is the Syrian Arab Army, which is the official army of the Arab Republic, Syria, they've pushed into the area from the south. Turkey has pushed in from the, I guess would be the northwest. And then the Kurds, who occupy the area in between, who are trying to establish an independent state that takes part of Turkey, parts of Syria, and northwestern Iran. They want to get an autonomous area in there, so they're obviously conflicting with lots of different countries to achieve that.
Well, Trump has received a lot of criticism for doing that, right? Because now, what is the reason for the criticism?
The criticism is that with the U.S. troops leaving, while they were there, they were acting as a buffer to prevent either Russia-backed militias, Iranian-backed militias, or even Turkish main forces to attack the Kurds. And now that they've withdrawn, that the Kurds kind of free game. I guess that's the criticism.
Yeah. So it's always going to be an issue when Trump makes any decisions, especially for this one, because even Republicans are not too thrilled with this, right? So, but moving on to our last issue, which is the protests for democracy in Hong Kong. Now, the NBA actually has stated that they are with Hong Kong. Amara, you have something to say about that?
Did they say they were with Hong Kong or with China?
With China. Sorry, with China.
I think that in North America, we're really, I don't want to say spoiled, because I think like civil rights are civil rights. You're not spoiled for having them. But I think we talk a lot about the violations of rights that happen with, like Trump and stuff like that. And I don't think we realize how many other places in the world like don't have even a semblance of the rights we do. And I think that I'm really glad that they're protesting in Hong Kong. And I think that celebrities in the NBA supporting China is just evident of how much China controls North American economies and how much their money actually
China,
means.
you mean West Taiwan, right?
What?
That's just a joke.
I didn't get it.
West Taiwan, because the Communist Republic is an illegitimate state.
Oh, okay.
So the joke is West Taiwan. Yeah.
I get it.
You don't seem thrilled about it, though.
I mean...
But, Jessica, what do you think about China or the NBA taking a stand with China? And just, I wrote down that things are getting very violent. Like a small bomb exploded. A police officer was stabbed in clashes, overnight in China.
And a lot of people are suspicious. Like in Hong Kong, a lot of people are suspiciously dying. There's not a lot of reporting. I think the Chinese government is clearly
it's very corrupt.
It's
incredibly corrupt.
I don't know if it's even corrupt or just like bad. Like I think that's how.
I think it functions.
Based in, it functions with corruption. I mean, that's the way that it functions. I mean, I think us as North Americans, because we are in a position of privilege. I mean, we are like, look at the rights that everybody is entitled to, and not a lot of countries and citizens get, including the citizens of Hong Kong. We are in an incredible position of privilege, as much as we do have issues here. So I think, and because again we are so based in our business and based in capitalism and NBA and which is a corporation, I think we have to utilize the power that we have and join an alliance and join in support where we can. I mean, everybody deserves those basic civil and human rights, and everybody deserves a fair and equal democracy. So if they can fight and if they can help and if they can do something, then I think any corporation, not just the NBA, any individual should be doing what they can individually and corporately and government-wise.
Well, that's the problem with free trade and the free flow of capital is if it gets concentrated in China, even if companies that have headquarters in the U.S., they're
that's why capitalism, I think, is just such a... that's very unpopular opinion, but no.
You're not for capitalism.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not for capitalism, not for billionaires. I'm not for this mass development of wealth when there's so many people dying and not equal, and just their rights are just squandered.
Yeah, so we have those rights in North America and parts of Western Europe because our ancestors that were here in previous generations fought for those rights and gained them. And I think that's what you're seeing in Hong Kong, that they're fighting for their rights.
Just a little later.
Just a little later. I mean, that's okay.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, one of these rights is the right to vote, and that's what our main topic is about today, the Canadian federal election, part 2 of 3 of our series. With less than a week to Election Day, we just changed that graphic there. With less than a week to Election Day, things have been heating up along the campaign trail. The French debate held last week was the last chance for leaders to convince voters that their party was the best choice, or is the best choice. And today, our expert panel talks about the results of that debate and what the next several years could look like federally in Canada. So let's start with the results from our poll. Sam, do you want to pull up the poll real quick?
Sure.
And let us know what the question was that we asked our viewers. The question actually, remembered it. It was if the leaders' debate changed people's vote, if it swung their vote a different direction. Did it have an impact on you? If you answered in our poll, you're going to hear the results right now. So, how many people voted in our poll, Sam?
Hold on 1 second, Facebook. Getting zucked
Almost
right
there?
Now. No, I'm okay. All right, here we go. So for our poll,
how many people voted?
So 72 votes in total.
Mm-hmm. And percentage-wise, how many?
47% said yes, they
delete
did.
Okay.
And 53% said no, they did not.
Wow. So it's almost evenly split. And how many people per category? How many for yes? How many for no?
34 for yes, 38 for no.
Wow. So
Pretty
it's a
close.
very close. Yeah. So that's actually surprising, which means that the election could easily be could see a big shift in it, right, after this change in vote. And then we also asked the same question on Instagram. And what did the folks on Instagram say, Jessica?
So we didn't have as big of a market, but we had still 14 votes.
That's really good. Really good for Instagram.
9 votes for no and 5 votes for yes.
And percentage-wise, how much?
Let me see. Where do you find the percent?
You just go back to the thing.
Sorry.
Yeah.
36 for yes and 64 for no. I'm very not good with technology. I'm not going to lie.
That's okay. But so clearly, smaller gap on Facebook, bigger one on Instagram. But obviously, with more people, you get a little more accurate. Yeah. So before we start, remember that we are live on Facebook, so you can comment on our feed to have your thoughts read live on air. Let's begin with the French debate. Who won? Amara, let's start with you.
I don't know. I don't feel like there was a real clear winner this time. I think everybody did better than the last English one before that.
Right.
I think May did a good job again. And I think SCHEER did a good job. So those two are still the people that I think did the best, but I don't think it was as clear as last time.
I think Blanchet was the most concise, arguing his political viewpoints, obviously because it's his primary language, but then you could say the same for Trudeau. I think Blanchet from the Bloc and maybe Bernier had the best showing. How that will impact the polls, I think obviously it has been, we can talk about that later, it has been impacting the Bloc's polling a lot in Quebec. But yeah, that's my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Jessica?
Not Bernier. In my opinion, I just thought it was a better debate in general. The format was better. Sure. They didn't just go after each other as much, attack each other as much. I mean, SCHEER still did that with Trudeau, but I felt that he didn't go after it wasn't as on the defensive, which makes for an easier debate to watch because everybody knows what happened and everybody knows that Trudeau did blackface. So just keep bringing that up is beating a dead horse.
Did they
which
bring
I'm
it up?
against.
I don't think
they brought it up.
No,
yeah,
they
he
didn't
did once.
What? Who did? SCHEER?
SCHEER.
What did he say?
At the beginning, he said something about it.
Oh.
It wasn't. You're right. It was not as prominent.
Mm-hmm. You're right. The
Missed
format
the
was
blackface
definitely
this
better.
time.
Yeah. In my opinion, who won? I thought Trudeau did a good job. I mean, he answered majority of the questions. I did like May. She wasn't as at least she had a voice in this one.
she didn't
You know
get
what I
talked
mean?
over.
She really tried.
I think the format helped
But
that
yes,
as well.
for sure. But again, I'm really liking SINGH. I know you're not going to agree with me on that, but I'm really liking
I just
SINGH.
don't think there's any reason to.
Ooh. Well, so it's funny the way everything is, because you genuinely don't like SINGH, you genuinely don't like Bernier, and you genuinely don't like
Anyone?
Anyone?
Really? Not too much.
Okay. I think SINGH and Blanchet capitalized on trying to pin Trudeau and SCHEER against each other and say, look at this mess, vote for a change here. I felt that May was very emotional about the environment.
Which she should be.
So that's what be. I mean. She was very like, this is something that she wants to. There's the face.
Wow.
Fine, you go kill the planet. Where are you going to live? Where are you and your 6 kids going to live if you kill the planet?
Quebec.
Gosh.
Oh, yeah,
Canada.
Quebec's part of the planet. No, yeah.
Quebec's going to leave.
1.6%. 1.6% of global emissions. If we're screwed anyway.
Who makes those global? If we cut our ties, if we make an issue with China and start doing our part, I'm agreeing with that. They are one of the biggest factors. But who is their market? Us.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We should.
So we should put in place. That doesn't mean that what we're doing here isn't any worse. But because we're not doing it on as large of a scale, does not mean that we shouldn't do something to prevent.
But in an economy where it is primarily resource driven, in a primary industry economy, there's no point hamstringing. Canadians are already living paycheck to paycheck, and for a 1.6 difference in global emissions, it's not worth it.
And the thing is, to meet our...
That's where we disagree.
Okay.
Well, Bernie brought it up that to bring to achieve the levels that we're supposed to according to the Paris Climate Accord, it would be an approximate $300 per carbon ton, something like that.
Yeah.
And gas would go up about 23 cents. And obviously, the government isn't planning to do that because that wouldn't. People don't want that. So.
Well, then start taxing the rich.
Yeah.
But
okay.
But it has to come from somewhere. So you actually, wow.
I feel like that's everyone's answer for everything.
Down.
Because they don't. They evade.
It's like every question that SINGH was asked, his answer was usually tax the rich. Yeah. How much are we going to tax the rich? Like, there's still people who...
I think it's between 1% to 2%, which on a $20 million...
1% to 2% more?
No, I think that was towards tech giants, right?
Yeah,
like
tech
Amazon.
That's
what
Blanchet kept on advocating for.
Which I think is
a good idea.
Is a good idea, yeah.
Well, some other key issues that were in this debate were, as we mentioned, taxing wealthy corporations, internet giants, Amazon. Other issues were the economy, which relates to the carbon tax and the environment, as well as immigration was a big issue. Did that topic stand out to any of you? Because that's Bernier's big talking point, right?
I don't remember who said it. I think it might have been Bernier, but they were talking about like a values test for immigrants.
Yeah. I think that would have been Bernier.
Yeah, sounds like him. I don't necessarily think that's the worst thing. I don't think that we should not have any immigration. Like, boomers are about to retire. Mm-hmm. They're a pretty big generation. We're going to need people, and I don't think Canadians' like birth rate is high enough to replace them. So we should definitely have people immigrate, but I think that we need to make sure that they will integrate well into Canadian culture and have similar values to Canadians.
Yeah, I think what Bernier was discussing was the one-on-one interviews with prospective immigrants, which was what we had under Chrétien, but it was cut due to budgetary reasons. So,
well, it would be expensive. That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you're not forcing them to get rid of their culture. I mean,
if your culture conflicts with Canadian values, though, then you shouldn't live here.
How do you judge that?
Female genital mutilation. I mean, that's what
like state-sanctioned homophobia. Like, you should that.
No, I agree with that. But like, what I mean by like,
that's a values test. I mean, you would agree then.
Yeah, but that's also pretty subjective.
I don't think so. Well, no, I think there are some objective things that we like. Female genital mutilation is a pretty big one. I think women's rights in general. There are a lot of countries in the world that don't really respect women at all. Like Saudi Arabia just allowed women to drive.
Yeah,
and I think in Iran, women just were able to watch
the soccer games, and they sold out in minutes. The tickets sold out in minutes.
Absolutely ridiculous that it's 2019 and women couldn't go into a stadium and watch a soccer game. And obviously not everybody from those countries believes that, and that might be why they're leaving. So I think that's why you would need the interviews, because if you come from a culture like that and you genuinely believe in that and support those ideas, I don't see how you would successfully integrate into Canadian culture.
Yeah. So obviously, on top of that, Bernier wants to limit the amount of immigrants we take. SCHEER also wants to, but he said he wants to prioritize refugees as opposed to economic migrants, right? Economic
Well,
immigrants?
he said specifically he doesn't have a problem with the liberal numbers, but I think he wants to change the mix-up.
So does he
I
want
don't know what that
more
means.
refugees or less?
I
I would assume less.
couldn't tell you. He's been very kind of
Vague.
murky about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you don't get rid of our immigrants, like you can't just no more immigrants. That is not
I don't think
feasible.
anybody
No one's
says
saying
no
that.
more immigrants. It's just which immigrants.
I mean,
Well, that's really
to
you
a
can't
degree,
just pick and
Sam.
choose. You can't just pick and choose what if you want to do the test so that people are like living by our even
Values?
that's not even just values, even like our laws. I mean that's
Well, that's
illegal
like
here,
not really
you know.
a question. Like if you break the law, you're going
Hello, do you plan on
prison.
breaking any laws when you enter Canada?
Like,
No, but
But I do feel
You
you
know
need to
what
pick
I'm-
and choose based on their values, I think, personally. And it's different if somebody's like a child, maybe. But if you're like a full-grown adult and you just have... I think if you have values that conflict with Canadian values, then you're not going to successfully integrate.
it's just it's a very how do you I don't know.
I think
how,
the one-on-one
okay,
interviews
even
are
if
the
you-
best way. Though
Even
people would
if you
probably
held
lie.
even if you held a one-on-one interview with some guy and you're like, would you mutilate somebody's genitals?
I'm
I don't
sure
think
that's not how they would
anybody's gonna
phrase it.
say yes.
Would you personally?
So how do you feel about so-and-so? How do you feel about this?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's how... I mean, they're professionals, and they've done it before in Canadian
And there's
history.
probably like I know there's psychological testing where you don't necessarily just ask the question like straight, because if they're planning on lying, they're not stupid. So you ask like the same question a bunch of different ways to kind of see how they genuinely feel. So I assume it would be something like that.
I'd have to see a plan. Like I don't know how that would work. I mean, I mean that's just for the protection of all people, and for I especially agree with your point on equality, especially for women and protecting women. Like there should. Globally, though, we should deal with it over there.
Well,
as
I also-
well,
But shouldn't we focus on
um,
our country first before moving to
if you're
to
talking
deal
about
with...
immigrants,
But I think women are pretty good.
No, I mean
here.
dealing with issues,
Yeah.
because you said we got to deal with the issues globally, right?
for like genital mutilation, I really
exactly.
don't think that's a big issue here. Not that I'm
Thankfully.
aware
I
of.
don't think it
I mean,
happens
yeah.
a lot.
Shouldn't even be a small issue. It just shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Twice in one day we agree.
wow.
color me
You should have
surprised.
seen what was going on before the show. Maybe we'll even do a special Instagram live thing before the show. We'll see what happens there.
Do you want me to have horrible blood pressure for the rest of my life?
No,
Jeez.
because we still need you for this amazing show and this panel. So on top of immigration, within it, Bernier and SCHEER and Trudeau, they were all talking, and I think SINGH as well, we're all talking about the illegal border crossing that was happening in Quebec in the Safe Countries Act, Amara.
So I don't understand. So from what I understand, people who are crossing the border, like coming into Quebec, were seeking asylum, right?
Yes, to an extent.
From the U.S.
From the U.S.
How does that work?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the problem.
Like,
So-
aren't you supposed to, like, if you're a refugee seeking asylum, like, the whole idea is that you're running for your life.
Exactly.
How do you, like, you're in the States and you, like, that doesn't make sense. You'd be safe there.
Well, their argument is that they're at risk of being deported because their immigration status or refugee status has expired within the U.S. So then that they would come here and then that status would refresh. But the current policy is, but it's not being enforced, that the first country that you arrive in that is safe, you have to claim.
That makes
asylum
sense.
in.
I don't
That's
understand
the
the
Safe
first
how
Countries
country.
Agreement, right?
Right. But that's not what's happening, especially
it's insane.
a lot of the immigrants that are going, refugees, whatever, asylum seekers that are going to Quebec are, I guess initially, were ones that after the earthquake in Haiti had claimed asylum in the U.S., which makes sense, I guess, that's the first country you go to after Haiti. But then that, I guess, status as a refugee is about to expire or had expired, and then they were at risk of being deported back to Haiti. So then they fled to Canada.
Canada does not have, like, I don't think Canada has the resources to support that. Like,
That
isn't the whole
many?
idea that, I don't know, you go back when your
but the
status expires?
Claiming
Exact-
refuge, and then once it's safe, you go
Exactly.
back.
which is not, and so Bernier obviously wants to get rid of that. She wants to get rid of that. What's Trudeau and Singh's stances on that?
That once they cross the border, they are processed,
Mm-hmm.
and then they determine from then
Mhm.
whether they have a legitimate claim. But by nature of them coming from the U.S., I don't think
They don't have a legitimate
they don't
claim
have a
for
legitimate
asylum.
claim.
Yeah.
Unless they're being like hunted down,
well,
but
which
that's like the
I don't
outlier.
think that's happening.
Yeah, I don't think
You
so.
know.
States is pretty safe,
Yeah.
I think, in the grand scheme of the world.
And they'd be crossing from what, Vermont? Yeah, come on.
That's
The
Bernie
mean
Sanders
streets of
writing.
Vermont.
We
Just
need to talk
States
to
is
Bernie
so
Sanders.
safe, then what is happening with those camps and those and immigrants coming from?
You mean in the
But that's not
in the border?
Canada's responsibility to deal with
I think it's a
immigrants
global.
coming from
I think okay.
Mexico.
Regardless,
But
everything that's
interfering-
happening with that in the States right now, that's such a human rights
It
violation.
can be it is a human rights violation. I agree, but
No,
if Canada doesn't
Oh,
have,
so detaining babies isn't a human rights violation?
What would you rather do? The parents are detained because they just committed a crime. What should they do with the baby?
they should. I think
Oh,
they
they
should
committed
send
a
them
crime because
back.
they're refugees.
No.
Yeah, they're
Well, they
coming
crossed
because they're
the-
coming from gang-ridden countries.
That's exactly the point. So they cross the border, right? The U.S. Administration, well, the enforcement there doesn't know if they're a refugee or not yet. They could be.
So detaining them is the way, and
Yes,
those
'cause you-
inhumane conditions
you-
are the way.
Nope.
Those inhumane
The
conditions
ones
are the way.
put in place under Obama, by the way, but they are
That is-
detained.
That doesn't mean that they're not inhumane.
They're fine.
Right
How
wingers
is
keep
that
saying that. Like
fine?
under Obama violated
They are
people's
so
human rights as well. That doesn't mean
inhumane.
that
People
it's all
are
right.
dying. Babies are dying, and you think that's
Yeah.
okay?
Okay,
you
can I
think
just
that's
say?
okay?
I think
You're
that
crossing a country illegally. They're
so you
doing you a
deserve to
favor.
die. So you deserve to die.
No.
I don't think anybody
deserve
deserves
to
to die because
give
they're
birth
trying
in
to
those
get into the
inhumane
states.
conditions.
No.
But I do think that if from what I've heard about the detention centers, they're not the greatest, and I don't think that due process is being followed. I'm sure that there have been human rights violated, and I'm sure we can have empathy for people who left Haiti after an earthquake or who are leaving gang-ridden countries in South America and who might be afraid that in the States they don't have as good of a chance of getting citizenship. I know it's difficult, but that doesn't mean that Canada has the resources to take care of them as much as we'd like to. I don't think we should put Canadians at risk, especially when we have vulnerable populations here, like Indigenous people or homeless people, mentally ill people, in favor of trying to help the world. I don't think we can really do that.
I think it's a matter of it is an issue, and the conditions are not necessarily humane. And the problem is, though, that the focus is on it now as it's under Trump, when it was an issue under Obama, but the attention wasn't given to it.
It's gotten worse.
No, I think that makes...
You look at the reports, and it has gotten
I don't know
worse.
if it's gotten worse. I do think that that's a good point, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening. I completely
yeah.
think that we should, recognize
Then
that
where's the
Obama
UN
violated
in all of
human
this?
rights at all.
The UN has no
The same
authority
way.
on sovereign states.
Well,
They can
they pulled
sign
out of
binding
this.
resolutions, but I mean, so what? What are the UN's going to do?
The other issue with intervening with another country is, for example, the States asks
It's also
Canada.
the States.
Yeah, so you're really not gonna.
You're not going to make
They're
them
not
do
gonna listen.
anything.
Yeah,
Let's go back
So,
to Canada.
because Canada, at the request of the States, intervened with Huawei and arrested the CFO of Huawei, and now there are 2 Canadians detained in China, all because Canada said, "Well, sure, the States asked us." So it's like it's kind of like taking your little brother somewhere. The States is the big brother,
Yeah.
literally, and Canada's the little brother. And the little brother's like, "Go get me that." Oh, fine, okay.
Like when you ask your little sibling to ask your parents for something when you don't want
Exactly.
to or something. Yeah, I think Canada...
So Canada should not have intervened.
No.
Because now we're in a whole diplomatic kerfuffle,
Yes.
which we shouldn't
Love
have been in. Huh?
that kerfuffle.
Kerfuffle?
Well, I think if they were, if the refugees, whatever they are, illegal aliens, there we go. If they're crossing from the U.S.
Well, to be fair, not all of them.
Exactly.
Not
but
all
if they're
of them.
crossing from the U.S. into Canada and they think they have a legitimate claim, why don't they go to an official point of entry?
Exactly.
Because they know if they cross at these random outback spots that there's no authority at, they
You think
just
there's
might,
education
they might,
on this? You think that there's there's notice about this, and it's just a public thing of knowledge?
What is?
Just go to
Official
these.
point of entry? Yeah, I mean, just go to a library, look up official point of entry.
If you were
How
in
to
a
apply-
gang-ridden country, is
The
that
US?
the first? I'm talking about Mexico and
I'm
all
not
the.
talking.
But
we're
you're talking about the
Canada.
people that are
I'm talking
illegally
about,
coming
Oxfam Road.
across Quebec's border from the States.
Oh, we're talking about Canada again. Sorry.
Vermont. Yeah, I'm sure Vermont has very
public
nice
libraries,
public
yeah.
libraries. Official point of entry. Go back to U.S. I mean,
Even so, before you leave the country, you will obviously think of what you're going to do. You're not just going to pick up and go. You'll obviously at least take a second to realize, okay, I got to go this way to Canada or this way to the States.
And I think you're right. They know that their best chance of getting in is not going to an official port of
Mm-hmm.
entry. It's just walking.
it's all sham.
Jessica?
You think immigration is a sham?
Nope.
Jesus.
That's not what I
No,
said.
no, no.
Literally not.
I didn't
so
hear
you're
that.
saying. So you're saying. Nope. That's not what I said.
Illegal immigration, the system that's happening right now. People
I
being
don't
able
know.
to
There's
claim
not
asylum from the
South
States.
American drug cartels are not running around Vermont shooting at people that want to claim asylum in Quebec. Like, come on.
No, obviously, we should. If you're gonna do it, you should do it through the proper routes. That's with anything.
Do you think
You
they're
should do
too
it through
dumb
the
to
I don't think they're
figure
too
it out
dumb.
how to do it properly? There's
never said
there's a
that.
border. There's a border. Let's just go cross it. I'm too dumb to figure out where the
Okay, that's
official
just, we
crossing
don't
is.
need to insult. We don't know anybody's situation, so we do not need to insult.
So they could be dumb. Okay.
Oh my God.
I did not say that
No, she didn't say that.
at all.
Okay.
What I am saying is you don't know the situation of people. If they're like, yeah, you should go through the proper systems. Everybody should go through.
But
in any situation,
It's
you
not
should go through
Canada's
the proper
responsibility to care
situations.
about your situation if you're going to break the law. There's a lot of reasons. I'm sure people have a lot of very good reasons for committing crimes. That doesn't mean that they didn't commit a crime and that we have to, accommodate that.
It's very well. Then make it more prominent and make it more well.
I don't think we have to make it easier for people to
I don't know.
immigrate here.
I don't know. I think
That's
there
not what
should,
I'm saying. I'm just.
I don't think so.
I think there should be some sort of immigration reform. It is difficult to immigrate, but there should.
Yeah,
but
because there's a priority
Why should it be
towards
easy though?
high-skilled immigrants.
Why
We're
should
not
it
saying
be
it should be easy.
Why should it be
But there
easier?
should be a. Well, then,
Canada accepts the highest level of immigrants in any Western country
Per capita, right?
and I think
Exactly.
that's something to be proud of, personally.
But okay, so we already do that. Why should it be easier for you to immigrate here? Why
I
should
never said it should be easier. What
no,
you're
I
saying,
said
you're saying,
that.
okay.
I,
Okay.
I said that,
sorry.
not Jessica.
I just think that we should protect Canada's resources.
it should be an equal and
for
fair
Canadians.
process.
Absolutely.
Absolutely,
And
but
I
at the
think-
same time, it can't be equal and fair if people are crossing illegally.
Yeah, they're
That's not fair.
spitting on everyone else's way to
No,
the
so
line.
okay, so if you're going to cut down on that, do it ethically and don't do it like how the states are going to do it.
No, I don't think Canada's going to set up detention centers.
I hope not.
No.
Well, if there wasn't that many people, I think they might be forced to.
But why can't they just turn them away? Why would they have to detain them? Like,
Because
that's the
it's a
question.
legal question. Once they've entered the country, you can't just you can't force them, right? Like, what are you going to shoot at them when they cross the border?
but people get deported all the time. Like, why can't you just not let them
Yeah,
in?
but there's a legal structure where once they enter, then you have to process them legally, and you
Okay,
have to give
makes
them.
sense.
Yeah,
Well, then if we do it that way, then see if it's legitimate and then go from there. If you want to implement this testing thing, then do it at that point. Like, you're never going to cut down on people illegally coming into whatever country. Like,
you
I'm
can
sorry.
disincentivize them from coming, which is what we
What
should be doing.
family
Even if you
separation does.
Well,
That obviously
definitely
doesn't work.
disincentivizes
Yeah, it
people
does.
from
But that
going.
doesn't work.
What?
Disincentivizing.
Yeah, sure it does. If you
How
come in
does it
here
work? It's
and you're
still
doing it
such a
illegally
right.
and you're not entering at an official
We'll
point
take
of
your
entry,
children.
you're going back. Sorry.
They're not going back. They go to get abused. And
Where?
then they get separated.
Separated?
well, the disincentive is to separate
That's
them.
what I was saying. I think
that's what
family
they're
Yeah,
separation
talking
but it's
about.
itself is a
obviously it's not
disincentive.
doesn't work.
Yeah, clearly it's not making an impact because they're
Exactly.
trying to find
So-
any way in.
And it's a human rights violation. That's all it does. It doesn't people still come.
I think the way that the detention centers are working now do violate human rights, but I don't think that not letting people into your country is a human rights violation.
Yeah.
Immigration is definitely going to be a key role in this election. Probably not as much as it will be in 2020 in the States, but it's still something very big in Canada. Another big topic is the right to die with dignity that was
I
brought
want to hear
up.
Samuel's opinion on this because I know your opinion on abortion. So I really, what do you?
The reason Amara is cracking up is because we had a very lively discussion in our group chat, and maybe one day you'll hear
Maybe.
hear
Partake
everything
in that.
live.
I
But
am
yeah, Sam,
still
let's
bitter, but anyway.
That would be fun.
Sam,
Samuel.
let's go to you. What's your opinion on the
right to die.
The right to die with dignity?
I think, if people are willing to end their lives, right to die means that a doctor would be willing
Yeah.
to end your life.
Yeah.
Well, if a doctor is willing to do that and a patient, an individual wants to end their life, they're going to do it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
I don't personally support it.
I think I agree with Singh on this actually.
And
Miraculously.
Singh's point is, just
well,
for
I
our
think
viewers,
he supports the right to die with dignity.
is there a specific policy point? Any to which point? What are the qualifications?
I'm not sure of his
Not sure?
specific.
Okay.
It was very briefly touched upon
Yeah.
in the debate on Thursday, and I think every leader except SCHEER, I don't know, because he just talked about it. He never said like what his opinion on what his stance was for either way. But every other leader basically said, yeah.
Well, I definitely do think you have the right to die with dignity.
I think so.
The only thing he said was
It's your
that he
body.
wants to work with all the party leaders to come to some sort of agreement. And I think it was probably one of the most emotional parts of the debate with the lady who asked the question, because everybody clapped and she was visibly taken aback. So I think that was a very nice moment. Clearly, that would only happen in a Canadian debate, not in an American debate. But moving forward, let's talk about a potential coalition. If SCHEER wins, the NDP, Jagmeet Singh, has stated that he would be willing to form a coalition with the Liberals. He has said that he will definitely not be working with the Conservatives. So what do you think that that's going to happen? Do you think that if SCHEER wins, that he would really be for that? And what would happen?
If SCHEER won?
If SCHEER won the majority of the seats, but not a majority government, the Liberals or the NDP would form a coalition with the Liberals.
Well, I think it's funny. Like the NDP and its supporters for years have been saying, "Well, vote for the NDP because we want a real different left-wing voice in Parliament."
Yeah.
And then the second the opportunity arises, well, we're gonna form a coalition, and then the Liberals obviously are the majority of that supposed coalition. So then they're gonna just propose liberal policies. I mean, sure, there'd be some NDP influence.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it's a
100%.
joke.
It's the same
They're
thing.
really just selling out the years of the differentiations they've built up and that, support, and then they're just going to throw it all away for 4 years of maybe influencing the party in power? Like, come on. But, whatever. I don't really care.
I couldn't see the Liberal, like if that did happen and they formed a coalition, I couldn't see the Liberals being too sensitive to the NDP's, wants, I guess.
No, yeah, and it would basically be they would be in power once again. The Liberals would have control.
Yep.
Well, Liberals are more. I mean, they're liberal, but they still have more of a right-wing influence compared to the NDP. So you're
they're closer to the center than the NDP, but definitely
they're going to have a more especially because you're right, because it is economic. That's where their influence comes from.
I don't know.
There's not really a social center anymore.
No, there's not
at all.
Even SCHEER isn't really he is not a social conservative at all.
You think he's a liberal conservative?
Because of his abortion
he's
views?
left wing. Well, he's saying, this is my personal opinion. But then, okay, well, sorry, bud, your personal opinion doesn't matter for shit. It's what you enact.
Well, I mean,
it does matter to an extent.
He's not the one bringing it up, though. People are kind of bringing it up accusatorily to Trudeau and Singh to make him look bad.
There is no right wing social position in Canada.
People's Party.
Bernier.
He's
probably
he's
the
left
furthest
wing
right.
on social issues. He takes.
Are you serious?
Yeah, he takes abortion and the right to die, like I heard in the debate. He takes the libertarian approach, which is a left wing approach, the individual liberty. So there you go.
Interesting. Well, do you foresee that really happening? So, what kind of policies are going to be implemented? Is it going to be the same ones? Because you look at, for example, Singh was trying to point out that SCHEER and Trudeau are both giving money to big corporations. They're just different corporations. Mm-hmm. So if Singh and Trudeau have a coalition, is Singh really going to be able to control what Trudeau does?
No.
So it's basically going to be Trudeau.
Well, they're the minority
It'll be the
of
same.
that coalition.
Yeah.
So no.
And even
looks like Singh's stuck being a minority once again.
That's his life.
Yeah.
He fights Bill 21 every day of his life, being a minority. So he's used to it.
Yes.
Something you want to add to that?
I am not adding to that.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about how each province will vote. So obviously the election is in 6 days. 6 days, and we will have the 43rd Parliament of Canada. How will each province vote? We're going to discuss Ontario and Quebec a little more in depth in a second, but let's start out British Columbia. West. I don't do directions. That's why I'm in media. Let's start with British Columbia. British Columbia is very green, I would say, a lot of it because of Elizabeth May's influence there. And I really hope she does win her seat. I just support her just for what she's done, being the only female party leader. And
absolutely.
Not that I support her policies per se, but I think that she's very...
So you don't support environmentalism?
Oh, gosh.
Not to the degree that she's proposing it, where there's no pipeline and that, we should be imposing such high rates on carbon
I think
tax.
that she's the only one that's being like honest
Yeah,
about.
I
Everyone's
agree.
kind of agreeing that, like, I mean, Liberals and NDP are agreeing that climate change is happening and it's caused by humans and it's so awful. But this, like, the goals and targets that they're committing themselves to won't help according to their own, materials. So I think she's the only one being like
the 5-year plan
honest.
isn't realistic.
Yeah, and that's why personally I'm just very supportive of her as a person and as a party leader.
Yeah.
Comprendre.
Well, her plan is realistic. It looks at both the economic and environmental aspects, which it's not just a blanket statement of I'm going to do this. If you look at her plan, it's feasible, but she won't get in. So, unfortunately,
I just hope she wins her seat. But other than that, British Columbia, the rest of it, how is it going to vote? Is it going to vote Liberal, NDP, Conservative?
Conservative.
Conservative.
Right now, it's
really?
going. The polling
Okay.
says it's blue.
Okay, let's move to Alberta, which is very conservative, especially with
Yeah.
Jason Kenney. And Trudeau actually keeps bringing that up, Jason Kenney and Doug Ford, and that's an issue. It's definitely been an issue for Conservatives in Ontario because Doug Ford, all these cuts he made far too quickly. He delivered on his promises, which is what he said. He did what he was going to do, which obviously some people are not happy with, and they didn't vote for him, but he delivered. The problem is he delivered too quickly.
They should have spread it out.
Exactly. And even some of the cuts, though, they could have been too drastic even from
Especially
Conservatives.
with the teachers.
Yeah.
you don't. Okay, if
Education.
you have to make cuts, you don't make it in healthcare and education, like ever. You increase if you're going to do anything,
I mean,
like healthcare.
where else would you cut, for example?
Well, maybe not doing cuts or whatever, but I think that's where it comes in with taxes. Like, I don't understand what people are. I understand because it is an expense, but you need tax, especially in our society where we do have free healthcare and we have a really good education, a decent education system.
Mm-hmm.
You need high taxes, and so the whole we're going to lower so we can cut and everything, it doesn't work. It doesn't work in a system where you have. Where you have universal healthcare. Like, I'm sorry, that's not feasible.
Well, just to backtrack, I just want to bring up Marshall's point, which is that relating to you, Jessica, the Green Party platform, he says, is insulting to environmentalists. She has an opportunity as a fringe party leader to push less mainstream issues, yet the Green Party continues to push fake liberal environmentalism. What do you want to say to that?
Where are you getting this from?
This is Marshall's comment on the show.
Okay, but where is he getting this from that it's insulting to environmentalists?
You want to clear that up, Marshall, where your comment is coming from?
I
or your
guess
opinion?
he would look towards. I'm just guessing right now, but he would look towards maybe putting further tariffs on countries that don't respect the environment.
Right.
And
I think taking an international stance on almost everything needs to happen.
especially environmentalism.
Like, especially Trudeau's such a feminist, but he doesn't really.
But he had 4 women leave his party.
And he participated in the debate where May was excluded. I also just think internationally, if we're going to interfere at all, there's a lot of countries in which women don't have any rights at all.
Well, we shouldn't interfere with those countries.
Which countries?
I don't know.
Well, I don't think we should, but I think if we're going to, like, if people think that we have some sort of global responsibility, I think we need to be honest about our values that we have
we're
here.
not, because it's all kowtowing to
Yeah, exactly.
urbanites that want, social liberation or whatever.
Well,
Ugh.
well,
I don't know
moving,
what you're saying.
getting back to how the provinces are going to vote, let's talk about Manitoba. How is Manitoba going to vote? Which direction does Manitoba usually swing?
I think conservative.
I think they're mainly conservative.
I think they do have a.
Oh, sorry,
small
we
NDP.
missed Saskatchewan. My apologies.
Oh, no.
Well, on their CBC, I've only looked at the CBC because they do aggregate polling, and they just group it all as prairies. But I imagine
That's wrong.
well, whatever. Well, they do BC, Alberta, and then prairies, which I mean, sure. I guess there aren't enough ridings there to
Yeah,
justify enough.
Yeah, they're bigger. They're bigger ridings because there's less people. Okay, now to Manitoba, which we talked about as conservative, right? Skipping Ontario and Quebec, let's actually go up north to the territories. I think Yukon only has one
sounds
riding.
right.
Yeah. Huh? Sorry?
That sounds right.
Yeah. Yukon has 1, Northwest Territories, and crap, what's the other one?
Nunavut.
Nunavut. They all have
Biggest one?
I think 2 or 3.
Oh, my God.
I haven't done geography in a long time, sorry. But which way are they going to vote? Considering it's just literally one vote.
Don't they have a collection of independent parties?
Do they?
I don't think they have conservative, liberal, NDP.
They do have them running there.
Maybe
All the
From
Conservatives, Liberals, NDP, and Greens all have 338 candidates running.
Okay.
right.
What?
I think their system up there is a little different.
In terms of voting?
Yeah, and how they do their provincial government.
Oh, okay. Got it. But federally, how do you think they're going to vote?
That's the thing. I don't know if maybe.
I'm looking at it now.
Okay. In the meantime, while
I'll
you're...
get back to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll check back in with Jessica for the weather up in Nunavut. Let's talk about the Atlantic provinces.
Maritimes.
See, I got that right. Maritimes?
Maritime province.
Is that also Atlantic, though?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. So I got it right. I got it right. That's important. I got to stay factually accurate here. New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland and Labrador.
Liberal territory.
Yeah, they're pretty liberal.
Safe.
All liberal? Pretty safe. I know Seamus O'Regan is in, I think, Nova Scotia or Newfoundland and Labrador. He's a very prominent liberal.
When they spoke about abortion, didn't they talk about the only
New Brunswick.
abortion clinic? Yeah, in New Brunswick closing.
Yeah.
Was that do they not have like a conservative provincial?
Might have been a funding
Government?
issue. I don't know. I think they have a liberal government.
Mhm.
Going back
Excuse
to our territories,
Yeah.
Yukon is liberal and Northwest Territories and Nunavut are conscientious government.
There we go. Okay, that's what I was.
What does that mean?
Conscientious, what's that?
So
Is
basically,
that federally?
I think it has to do with
Yeah.
indigenous.
It's the cabinet is
governments.
appointed by legislature without reference to political parties.
Okay.
So,
But so the federal representative is who?
I don't know if they their federal representative is Bob McLeod.
And he doesn't identify with a party?
I don't think
That's-
so.
That's
Scottish.
Yeah, he's nonpartisan.
wow.
As well as Joe. Oh my God, I'm gonna butcher this. I'm really sorry. Saviktak.
That does
Is
not
not
sound
a
Scottish.
No. That's definitely
He's nonpartisan as well.
Okay.
interesting. Wow. Didn't
Yeah,
know
that is interesting.
because I expected it to just be same thing there in terms of conservative, liberal, NDP, you know. But now that we've all discussed that, let's go to Quebec before we hit Ontario. Quebec now, Sam, you've been informed of the way that Quebec is going to be voting.
Right.
Certain areas are going to be voting conservative, some liberal, and some NDP, and some bloc.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of difference there. You want to tell us real quickly?
Sure. So the liberal, historically, the liberals in Quebec have been a little bit different than liberals outside of Quebec, and that tends to go with the whole Quiet Revolution and even back to the 50s, but that's not important. But the point I'm trying to make is, I think in the only real support for liberals in Quebec is Montreal, specifically the western half of Montreal, where a lot of the English speakers are and the new immigrants. So I think you'd see those ridings in the west end of Montreal and further towards Ottawa go a little bit more liberal.
And is that Papineau's in that area as well?
Well, yeah, that's in Montreal.
Okay.
Yeah, so that obviously safe.
Yeah,
liberal
because it's
seat.
yeah.
And then
For those who don't know, that's Trudeau's riding.
yeah, and then I think the Conservatives never really had a big presence in Quebec, and I think you're seeing that even more so recently because the resurgence of the Bloc under Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Québécois, they've been eating away at the Liberal and Conservative support, and as you've seen their support go up. I think almost I have it written down right here. They're second in Quebec, and their gains have been due to the Libs and Conservatives dropping. So they have 20% of the vote in polling right now, compared to the 33% of the Liberals. So and that's just been going up since the first and second debate, the official debates. So I think they could even secure Quebec, the bloc.
Wow.
I think it's possible.
And the other areas, very quickly, not specific ridings, but areas?
So you'd see, besides Western Montreal, I think you'd see some pockets of NDP inside and outside the suburbs of Montreal, and then the rest would be a collection of Bloc and Conservative.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. And so, moving to Ontario, where we are, which is the biggest riding. Yeah, drum roll. Give us a drum roll, Amara. The downtown core.
That's just provincial, Sam. I don't know.
I think that was talking about Nunavut I think he means Nunavut.
Nunavut?
Marshall says, like Nunavut and the Northwest Territories. I think he means that's just provincial, in terms of the independent candidate. But if you could tell us specifically who they are, if you can find it out, Marshall, that would be great. Ontario, the downtown core is going to go Liberal. You have very high-profile candidates there. Bill Morneau is running in this riding in Toronto Centre.
He used to be in my riding. Like, I used to live in his riding and got his stupid flyers all the time.
Which riding was that?
It was Church and
Just
Wellesley.
because you don't want to vote for the guy, why? If it were conservative flyers, would they be stupid?
I mean,
Yeah, well,
how would you feel getting a Bernier flyer?
Yeah, you would. I respectfully disagree with this flyer.
Well, you're going to get them for any party. It doesn't mean that that's a way that they're just
I think
they're campaigning. Like, it doesn't mean it's...
Okay, Marshall cleared it up. He said the territory is represented
It's a waste of
regularly.
paper.
Yeah,
I agree.
that's true. And so
I don't even get them anymore, though.
what?
I do.
The pamphlets. I haven't gotten any.
Have you identified yourself as? Do you have a lawn sign? Have you identified yourself as a certain supporter of a certain party?
No, but usually, like, before the last election.
Well,
they
usually
got everyone. Yeah.
it's
Clearly.
like GOTV when they're doing advanced polls. They're going to go around and try and get everybody as fast as they can. But yeah, so Toronto is going to be very liberal. Speaking of the use of lit and literature.
Oh.
Lit. They use it. It's not just the slang of the children of today. No, the candidate, the Liberal candidate in my riding of Thornhill, has opted not to do any lawn signs, which decreased the use of plastic or plastic by, he said, 83%, something like that. And he said that it may help or hinder his election. The problem with that is that he's making it out to be like he's the greatest person in the world, but the rest of the Liberal Party is still using lawn signs, so it's not,
Well, at least he's kind of putting
At least he's
his money
trying.
where
Every
his mouth
little
is.
bit helps.
Yeah.
I'm always
So,
going back to that.
but Thornhill is a safe blue riding, obviously, because of Peter Kent. But let's talk about some key ridings in Ontario. That would be the 905 area, and I think one big one is Etobicoke North, because that's currently held by a Liberal, but it is Doug Ford's riding.
Yep.
Right? So because it's provincially conservative, it could easily swing federally. The conservative candidate there is Sarabjit Kaur. Then you have some bigger ridings like Eglinton Lawrence, York Centre, and they have a huge Jewish population there, which is what swings votes. Newmarket Aurora.
Swing which way?
Well, it was conservative beforehand. I don't know about York Centre. Yes, it was. Mark Adler, I believe. York Centre. And then we had Joe Oliver, who was the finance minister in Eglinton Lawrence. Now we have Marco Mendicino, who is the Liberal MP for Eglinton Lawrence. And York Centre, we have Michael Levitt, who's also a very prominent MP. We also have Milton, which is a big riding because you have longtime veteran MP Lisa Raitt running against newcomer Adam Van Couverden, who people will remember as a former Olympian. And he's definitely giving her a fight. Are there any other key ridings that you guys want to talk about?
In the GTA?
Yeah, in the GTA. Because the 905, King Vaughan is also a big one.
Mm-hmm.
King Vaughan is held by Deb Schult, but Anna Roberts is she's a conservative candidate looking to win. Hamilton looks like it's going from Liberal to NDP. And if it is NDP, it's staying NDP because of the unions.
Mm-hmm.
Any other key ridings?
So I know Oakville in the provincial elections switched from a longtime Liberal candidate to conservative.
Which
Right
one?
now they're dead center. Like
Really?
right now it's literally equal.
This is
Conservative,
Oakville?
Liberal. Yeah, because I was looking into
Oakville's
it.
2 ridings or 1 federally?
There's a couple.
Yeah, I think there's 2.
There's
Yeah,
Oakville, and
I
then
think so.
there's something else Oakville.
So I think since Oakville's developed more
Yeah.
northward, I think there's a separation between North and South Oakville. I don't know
Something
the
like
official
that.
names,
Yeah.
This is my first time voting in Oakville. I'm like
North
born,
and
raised,
South
Caledon,
Oakville.
which is always
Wow.
conservative because it's all farmers.
Yeah.
but stupid farmers. Anyway,
You are going to be a farmer.
I know I'm being sarcastic.
Oh, jeez.
So I'm wondering if that change in long-time support for Liberals provincially will have any impact federally in Oakville.
That's a very interesting take. Well, also some big ridings to mention. Sorry, Jessica, you wanted to step in?
I don't know necessarily. I mean, if you look at it even now, like I was just looking at all the I can't think
Polling?
of it. Polling, yeah. And there's a lot, like, what I'm finding, especially, the conservatives are the conservatives, but what I'm finding is there's a lot of, like, indecision or just flip-flopping between NDP and Liberal right now. And I think that has a lot to do with the debates. I know a lot of people that I've spoken to, or just a lot that I've read, it's been, like, the NDP influence has really happened after the debate and after,
I think especially for young people.
And Singh has really come out, like, in the last couple weeks, he's really come out strong.
Come out here to Ryerson.
Yeah, on your birthday.
On my birthday.
I ruined it just for you.
Yeah. Too bad I didn't get to meet him.
You wish it was your birthday, Jessica.
Huh?
You wish it was
You
your
would love
birthday so that
Jagmeet Singh for
Jagmeet
your
Singh is.
birthday.
I support Jagmeet Singh.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing. We're just saying it would have been better.
Then I would have some words. But anyway, yeah. So there's a lot of flip flopping right now, or just like indecision. I mean, I haven't cast my vote yet, just because I'm still not. I don't know if I do the strategic vote and vote Liberal or vote what I want, which is NDP. Which I know is what he's like. Don't vote just strategic. Vote for.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really don't want the Conservatives in, so I haven't fully made up my mind yet, and I'm gonna see how this next week plays out. See if he increases, because he has substantially increased. He's at like 19%, I think.
Yeah,
right now.
yeah, you're right. Yeah,
And he was at 13 or 12. Just
From what I see,
ago.
just with people like in our age group, he's doing really, really, really well.
Yeah.
I think.
So I think there's a lot of that going on, which I think is going to be really interesting to watch on election night to see how that plays out and where he ends up finally. But for me, where I'm voting, it is cut and dry. It's very dead center. And from what I was looking at and everything like that, I mean, it's Oakville. You're going to have the Liberals, but you're also going to have the rich old people wanting to do.
Well,
like,
I found that in
conservative.
Oakville, a lot of the, especially towards Lakeshore, there's a lot of, I mean, I grew up there, so I know
Yeah.
the families and the kids. A lot of them are champagne socialists. So I think it's a toss, really.
yeah. Well, in the other thing I wanted to discuss, because we are running out of time, we're basically at the end of our show, but technically it's reading week, so we can go a little bit longer. Let's talk about. Sorry.
Can we, if we want?
Yeah, we can. We
Yeah,
can.
okay.
So let's talk about polls. That's something that you wanted to talk about, Sam. I want to ask, how reliable are polls? Because you look at the states, everybody predicted that Hillary Clinton was going to win, and there's Donald Trump, silent majority. So that completely disproved basically every single poll in the states. How accurate are polls here? And are they really telling the truth? Is it, again, accurate?
I think the role of polls. Well, I think that there was a bunch of conditions in the U.S. that made.
Trump win.
Well, yeah.
Over
Besides
Hillary?
that, but for the polls not to be reliable,
Oh,
I think.
okay.
Well, they kind of like disincentivize people to vote, especially people of the Black community.
What do you mean with
How?
the IDs and stuff?
Yeah, when
I think that's a very interesting point of view. I don't know how I feel about it, because I feel like it's kind of offensive to say that requiring ID means that Black people won't vote.
It's only ever brought up towards African
No,
Americans.
Black
wasn't
people
that-
have
that,
ID
like, look at,
and are intelligent enough to go to like the DMV and stuff, and like that's what the state service Ontario is, right? Yeah, like the DMV, and figure out how to do that. So while I understand, like I see people say that in these districts in the states, they do kind of try to make it harder to vote.
they also made like a lot less polling stations in predominantly Black communities.
Yeah, I've seen that
and
as
like
well.
the lines
And
that
that's-
were just
that's pretty
absolutely
clear-cut.
yeah.
But I think that the requiring ID and stuff like that, I feel like the calling that racist is in itself a little bit racist, because Black people are just as capable as any other race of people as getting identification in order to vote and registering and all that stuff.
There's more poor white people in the U.S. than.
Well, that's because there's more white people in the U.S. than
Yeah.
Black
Yeah, that's not the point I'm
people.
trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is no one ever brings up, oh, well, why don't we think about all these rednecks? They won't have access to voting. That's never brought up. It's
Yeah,
only
I think
towards
the whole
African
idea of
Americans.
the Black identity comes with like hardship in life is pretty offensive in itself as well, because that's not necessarily true.
So do you think that polls are going to be
Right.
accurate here?
I think most likely, yeah. I think the role of polls in Canada, specifically federal polls, what they would tend to do is push a trend, especially when people are thinking about splitting the vote or voting NDP or Liberal. I think you saw that in in the provincial elections as well, people thinking, well, should I vote NDP, or if I vote Liberal, will that let Ford have a government? Well, eventually it didn't let Ford have a government. But I think federally in Canada, it would make people think whether it's viable to strategic vote or not.
I think that's a good point. I think.
And according to Marshall, we have another comment from him. He says, I wouldn't worry about a strategic vote. To be honest, the odds of a riding being won by a single vote are so small, you might as well vote your conscience.
Yeah, and I think you probably, no matter what the results are at the end of the election, you'd feel a lot better if you just voted
for who you wanted.
Yeah.
So obviously you do trust polls, and that's your...
In Canada, I don't trust them. I think in the U.S.
they're a little more accurate than...
Possibly. I don't know. It's just a smaller sample size.
Are they more accurate because there's not as much scandal behind them? Is that why you think they're more accurate?
Yeah, probably. I think in the U.S. there was I think there was
we
some
don't
kind
really
of
know
agenda.
if they're not accurate or not. That's the thing.
That's true.
I guess we'll find out.
We'll find
on
out.
Election Day.
We're told they're accurate.
Or we won't find out.
Or
we won't find out if they're accurate.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's not any, like...
Well, we'll find out whether they are or not.
Yeah. But I think in the U.S. there's definitely some kind of agenda to make people feel like Hillary Clinton had it in the bag.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
100%. There's a bias. Oh, there we go. That's the point I was trying to make.
Well, there was also a lot of people like, oh, no, I wouldn't vote for Trump, and then, like, secretly vote for Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
well, it's because they kind of made it like Hillary good, Trump bad, like morally. Like, you're a bad person.
And that's
if you
what the
support
point I'm trying to
Trump.
make is that the U.S. is much more polarized.
Yeah. I
Than
agree.
here, or at least appears.
Because it's a strict two-party system.
Right. It's much more on the nose in the U.S. So, like, hey, we're the left-wing media outlet. But in Canada, it's kind of, it's behind the curtain.
Yeah, it's a little more hidden, and it's a little less biased. But that brings me to my final question. Who is going to win this election, and what kind of government are we going to see? Amara, what is your take?
I really have no idea. I think I'm
loaded.
really interested to see what's going to happen. I don't know. I thought SCHEER had a really good chance, but I don't know about that now. But I think it's also just because, I'm on social media and stuff with young people, and young people are obviously usually more liberal, and they're really supporting the NDP right now. Mm-hmm. But I genuinely think probably Trudeau's going to win again.
Trudeau, and is he going to win a minority or majority?
I think minority.
Minority. So then the coalition probably wouldn't happen, or it still would? Because if he has a minority, he still can't necessarily pass everything without the support of another party.
Yeah, I think then it probably would happen. And
then
what we were talking about before, like it'll just be the Liberals. I don't think the NDP will have much pull.
You think the Greens will join the Liberals?
Probably, maybe.
Well, I think she said she wouldn't.
Yeah, didn't she say she wouldn't unless they committed to her environmental
they might say like, oh, we'll commit.
They won't.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, check it out.
And will the Bloc commit to help the Liberals or no?
No, I don't think they would. And the point I want to make is, I think even up until election night, the polls are going to change, and I think the Bloc will chip away more at the Liberal, their security in Quebec. I mean, Liberals are only really winning in Quebec and the Atlantic provinces, and then sure the Northern Territories. But I could see them definitely losing more support in Quebec, losing more and more ridings, and then them either being relegated to a minority government or the Conservatives achieving a minority government. But a majority on either side, I don't think is possible.
And before we get to you, Jessica, and just another comment from Marshall, he says that I used to say I wouldn't lie to a pollster, and then a pollster called me, and I lied my ass off. Couldn't help myself. Very real phenomenon, he says. So I guess maybe they're not accurate. But
that makes sense.
A pollster called me, I just hung up.
So. Well, Jessica, what is your thought on what is going to happen? Who's going to win? And what kind of government is going to be?
I think realistically, I mean, not what I want necessarily. Realistically, I think it's going to be Liberal.
Really?
I mean, what I want, huh?
A minority?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Amara on this. I mean, I personally would prefer an NDP. Like, I would prefer SINGH to win, but unless like he can really get into those competitive rankings in the next week, I mean, anything's possible. He has really increased over the past few days. So again, anything is possible. But realistically, if the polls were to happen tomorrow, I think it'd be Liberal. Yeah. Hopefully, anyway.
Some crazy scandal could come up, or Trudeau could say something
Jagmeet
really stupid.
Singh has done blackface.
Well,
or maybe whiteface. I don't know.
Is that the same thing?
I don't know.
No,
I don't think so.
probably not.
But
It just looks stupid, but it wouldn't be the same thing.
it's and from my point of view, I think it's going to be very close between a conservative or liberal minority, because right now the Liberals have only 15 more seats than necessary for a majority. So that's 15 ridings that if they're gone, then it's very easy for SCHEER to win.
That's where the whole strategic voting comes into place.
Yeah.
This is more proof why voting's a scam. Isn't it curious that it's always down to the last minute, always down to the line? There's no ever a clear majority in recent history.
Well, I mean, it was going to be a majority in the last election. You
I know,
kind of
but
felt it.
Whatever events may transpire near the end, it's always down to a hair. It's just very curious.
I mean, so you're against voting? You're against elections? You're an
Third
authoritarian?
No. I'm just observing a trend that is some manufactured tension, and then.
If it makes people vote, though, maybe it's good.
Jessica, you look like you want to add something in there.
Gosh.
You've just been eyeing. That's why I've been cutting to that camera. You've been eyeing Sam. Something.
Voting is democratic. Just
voting great, but I'm just commenting.
I don't
on
think Samuel's actually anti-voting.
I'm just commenting on how curious it is that it's always neck and neck at the last second.
Well,
I think it always is that way, just because you're not going to know everybody's vote.
and you're also
But
counting
just like the
everything.
nature of an election.
The last poll closes at 9:30 to have that all counted,
Yeah.
and by the time the election is usually called at like 12 month. Yeah, 12/1. Like, it's going to be very last minute. So you're going to get all like the last writings and last everything.
No,
So
I don't
it is
mean just
gonna be
last
pretty
minute in the
hectic.
sense that like everyone's hurrying to find the results. I mean that like the polls have everyone close and they could go either way at the very last second. Like,
Do you think they're like manufacturing numbers?
yeah, maybe a little bit.
Well, clearly they are.
That's
Clearly they are, just because of what Marshall said. People lie.
Yeah, but they all lie conveniently
At the same
to
amount,
make-
for either
you know,
side.
I think, yeah.
It's
I don't know. Show me
Definitely-
proof, and then maybe I'll agree with you.
definitely going to be an
I could
election.
say that
to-
about global warming.
Oh gosh.
There's so much
God.
proof.
Okay, and we're going to end the debate there for today's episode of the Raben Report. Again, in 6 days, there will be an election. Although we will not be doing a live election special because all eyes will be glued to the main networks, we will be doing an election wrap-up the day after on Tuesday for part 3 of our 3-part series of elections. The only thing I forgot to mention is a great zinger from the debate. I just find it very funny. SCHEER said to Bernier, I'll say it in French first, tu ne vas rien imposer, tu ne vas même pas gagner un poste, which means you're not going to impose anything, you're not even going to win a seat.
Oh.
I think, didn't he say en Beauce, which is his seat is called Beauce, his riding?
I don't know about that, but I just know that he said that, which I kind of found quite amusing. It's also amusing when May in the English debate yelled at SCHEER that he's not going to be prime minister. It's just so funny how dirty this got. But that's what we're here for, to talk about it and to analyze it. That was our show for this week. Thank you to everyone that tuned in and that messaged us live, mainly Marshall, for messaging us, but a lot of people tuned in, so thank you to all of you. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who voted in our polls on both Facebook and Instagram. It means a lot. It lets us know what you're thinking. A brand new episode of the Raben Report will be coming to you next week, same day, same time, same people. Remember to vote on Election Day. Have a great day,
Go
everyone.
vote. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the point. Yeah, go vote.
Have a great day, everyone.